Hello and welcome to Release Readiness Live. I'm Elna Miller, your community moderator, and I'm very excited to be here with you all week as we talk about some of the great new features in the Summer 19 release across all the major clouds. And for the first time in our live sessions today, we are welcoming the team from the Marketing Cloud. And what I love about Release Readiness Live is no matter what type of trailblazer you are, whether this is your first Salesforce release or your 20th, you will learn something new that you can use. Our product team is right here in the studio to talk about some of the great new features and also give you some live demos. If you have questions, please post them in the Release Readiness Trailblazer community or on Twitter and use the hashtag SalesforceLive. If we don't get to it on the air, don't worry, we'll follow up with you within the next couple of days. Now, we are recording this broadcast, so don't worry, you'll be able to watch it back at any time once the recording becomes available. And because we may be talking about the roadmap and making some forward-looking statements, I just want to quickly remind everybody to make sure your purchasing decisions are based on currently available functionality. And with that, let's meet our product team. And starting with Andy, welcome.
Thanks, Elna. It's great to be here. Like you said, the first time, we're really excited. My name is Andy Simmons, and I'm going to be talking about our live weather content block and how you can personalize content using weather data, as well as how to share audiences from Google Analytics 360 to the Marketing Cloud and activate those on channels like email and mobile. Super excited.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, I'm Shrestha Basumalik. I'll be talking today about Einstein engagement frequency, which is a tool that lets you use the power of Einstein to decide what's the right amount of email to send to your subscribers as a marketer.
Thanks, team. My name is Hillary Givens, and I'm very much looking forward to talking to you today about our new release with Pinterest. We have an integration with them that's very exciting, and we also have updates to our Google Customer Match feature. So I will be chatting with both of you, or about both of those today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Andy, shall we talk about the weather?
I think we should. Everybody loves talking about the weather, right? Specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about how weather impacts shopping behavior and why we decided to build this live weather feature for Marketing Cloud. And there's really three ways you can think about weather impacting our behavior, our shopping: how we buy, what we buy, and if we buy. The first one is all about, do you go in store or do you shop online? Physically, if it's raining out or snowing, maybe that prevents you from going into the stores as much, and you do more shopping online. It also affects what we buy. So think about if it's hot and sunny, maybe those sunglasses on the screen are something that you want to pick up. Conversely, if it's cold and rainy, you might be thinking about more of an umbrella. There's lots of different ways and things that you might buy based on the weather. It also might affect, depending what season, what you're interested in buying, and if you actually take that action to buy. So we're thinking about this when we built this feature, Live Weather Block, for customers and for email marketers. So what is that? Well, it's basically a content block within our emailing feature that allows you to deliver highly personalized messages based on weather data. So this is additional context that marketers weren't maybe able to access before, but it's doing the same thing as personalizing based on any other attributes that you would use about a customer. In this case, it's just the weather at their location. And it's simple enough so that any marketer can use this. We'll see that in the demo in just a second. And finally, it's really important because we just talked about how that impacts our shopping and buying behavior. We want to be able to include this so that you're able to take advantage of those moments when weather is really impacting how we make our decisions. So we can go ahead and jump into a demo. I'm going to swipe over here, and now what we're seeing is the Marketing Cloud. And this is the Marketing Cloud homepage. So when you first land in the Marketing Cloud, we have all of our different channels that we can access across the top, like email, mobile, social, and all of some underlying services and features like analytics, content, our orchestration, automation tools. Today, for this demo, we're going to actually go into email. And when this screen loads, I'm going to just pick an email that I've already started building. But you can create email. You can create it from a template, from HTML. If I click into my weekly promotional campaign, though, I want to show how we can pull in weather to this campaign to make it more personalized and more relevant. And of course, we are doing this live, so we always get a little bit of delay. But I'm going to go ahead and edit my content. And what you'll notice is I've already started building this in one of our great Marketing Cloud templates. I've got my logo here. In this case, we're Northern Trail Outfitters, a gear and apparel retailer. And I've got a nice hero image, call to action for my weekly sale. And I can add in all different sorts of blocks, from basic kind of content blocks, text, images, more advanced content like dynamic content or even Einstein content, all the way down to this live weather block right here. So if I drag and drop this in now, the idea here is that similar to a dynamic content block, I can set a default content to show when we aren't picking up any kind of weather data. And for that, and I can also, see more visually the images that are displaying. I think I have one down towards the bottom that I want to use for my default. All right, we'll just see what's loading. So I'll just pick this one for my default for now. And that's going to display in this persistent preview over here. If I want to create a weather rule and change my content based on what the weather conditions are when that subscriber opens the email, I can do that right here. And I've got a few default rules like hot, sunny, cold, rainy, cold, snowy. So let's just stick with hot and sunny for now. And in this case, if I'm trying to do some sort of hiking content, this is a really sunny hiking picture. So maybe I'll choose that one. I can add some text and offers over that and make that more interactive. But that's the background that's going to display there. I can also create custom rules, which is allowing you as the marketer to get a little more specific. So I maybe want to say a custom rule for when it's 0 to 32 degrees and when it's snowing. So if that's happening in parts of the US or elsewhere in the world, and they open this image or this email, the image that I'm going to show them is going to be one that is maybe more suited towards that particular weather condition and the mindset that they're in. So maybe something like this here. And what you can see is we're still stuck on our default in there, but if we want to test and see how this is going to look for a subscriber who would open this when one of these weather conditions is true for them at their location, we can just click on this viewing button and we can see how that will change once we deliver that and they open it in their inbox. So it's as simple as that. And it's a really exciting feature that we are bringing to marketers in the Marketing Cloud. And hopefully you'll find it useful in your day-to-day and in the campaigns that you're running.
Well, can we stop for a couple of questions on that before you move on to the
Absolutely,
next?
yeah.
So how are you actually determining the location of the customer? Like, how do you know if it's snowing or sunny where the customer is?
That's a great question. So today we're using IP address. So when the customer opens that email, where their IP is located, their device IP address. We're also looking at ways to incorporate stated or self-selected. So if the subscriber has filled out information about the zip code or the city that they live in, using that where IP address may be less accurate or not appropriate.
Interesting. So what about, so you mentioned retail, that was your use case, so your sunglasses and umbrellas or maybe camping gear or something like that.
Yeah.
But what other industries might be able to use this live weather block?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of people are not in the retail industry. So really any industry can use this. You can think of some creative ways. One that I was just researching kind of travel and leisure activities. And if you think about somebody who's recommending vacations or travel opportunities, you might change the destination that you're recommending or the content you're showing based on the weather. If it's snowy and you want to recommend them to go somewhere nice and warm and get away, that might be an option. Or maybe it's snowing and it's actually ski season and you want to get them to the slopes.
I was just going to say, I get a lot of emails from the ski resorts that I've been to, like, hey, we're getting a bunch of snow, come on up, so that would be
absolutely definitely
a use case.
Yep.
And when you look at the content, is it based on the weather at the time that they open the email? Like, let's say they open it a week later, does it automatically update, or is it based on when you sent that?
Yeah, so it's based on when they open it at first, because it's really important to be relevant about the current weather conditions and what are going on. And then, if they want to go back and open that email, it does remain that same offer. So in case you're one of those consumers who saves the email, goes back to it, and wants to find that same offer, it'll be there. Unless you're browsing on a different device or something. So a lot of people have a laptop, phone, iPad. As you go from device to device, that may change. And if you move locations as well. So if you're actually physically moving to another state or city or something, and we collect a different location, that might change that content as well. Yeah.
Even if you've opened it before, you might see. Or does it
Yeah.
sort of stay once you've opened it, or does it behave differently?
It usually will stay if you open it, unless one of those other conditions are true, like moving to a completely different location. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think that's really super interesting, and I know we have some other content to go through, so I'll let you go ahead and move on to your next topic, and then we'll see if we can take some more questions after that.
Great. Perfect. Yeah. All right. So let's jump now into and switch gears to talk about how to activate audiences from Google Analytics 360 into Marketing Cloud. And just to kind of set the stage here, why did we kind of embark upon this integration and this relationship with Google, besides the fact that they're a really amazing company, technology company? And it comes back to this idea of meaningfulness to customers, and that being meaningful in the messages, interactions we have is really important. When we think about some of the research we've done ourselves here at Salesforce, 57% of customers have stopped buying from a brand or a company because of a better experience that a competitor provided. So this is the kind of impetus that we as marketers, and our customers really have to get this right. But it's not that easy. And we know that delivering those experiences is stressful, whether it's not having access to the data at the time that you need it, or at all, or getting access to it, but it's just too stale, and the personalization, the interaction that results is clearly lagging. So how can we start to unlock this, especially when we think about what the Marketing Cloud does well and the channels that we access and the data that we have access to, and then partners like Google and what they are aware of and understanding. So that is why we started this partnership with Google, and specifically this integration with their Google Analytics 360 feature, which, as everyone is probably well aware, a really powerful web analytics tool. So with that tool, you can also create these rich audiences in GA360 based on all that web behavior and data. And historically, you could only use that within the Google ecosystem, their advertising products, their optimization tools, etc. Now you can share those to Marketing Cloud as if it were part of the Google Analytics 360 ecosystem, and activate across email, mobile, and other channels. And ultimately that delivers that relevancy that our customers are really craving. So once again, we'll jump into a demo. And let me flip over to Google Analytics 360. We're actually going to start here in our web analytics tool. And I want to show kind of how this all begins, because there's a couple things going on here. Number one, as kind of a setup step, we have to link these to our Marketing Cloud account and our Google Analytics 360 account. So right where you do this for all of the other Google products, you can link Marketing Cloud right here. And I've already set this up in interest of time, but I'll just kind of talk you through how easy it is. So the first step is to link our account. And this will literally just call back to the Marketing Cloud authentication service. The same way you log into your Marketing Cloud, you'll log in right here with those credentials to Google Analytics 360, and that creates the link. And then you just want to give this a name. Essentially, this configuration here is making sure that it's a unique link, that we know what we've linked. Once we've set those things up, we're ready to start creating audiences and sharing them with Marketing Cloud. So to do that, I can go to our audience definitions and audiences, and this is where I start creating audiences in Google. You can see I have all of my users as an audience, people who have come to the kids page of a website and not made a purchase, and the same for tents and gear, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of different combinations of audiences you can use based on what web pages they're interacting with, how long they're staying on the website, et cetera. All of those kind of web activity attributes that Google's capturing are available for use. Specifically with the browse abandoned tents, if I click in what we can see is we've set that up, defined the audience from what subset of activity and data, and then we'll start sharing those out to the different destinations. And the first three are Google destinations. Those are built right in, as you might imagine. And here we have Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So we created that link, and we can share that now to Salesforce Marketing Cloud as another destination. And what that does is, in the Marketing Cloud, here we are again, I can go to my contact and data model here in Contact Builder, and I can see what data is being captured, both by the Marketing Cloud, but also by these shared services. So in data sources, I have something called Synchronized data sources. And right here is Google Analytics 360. And we can see that we've linked 8 audiences, actually. And there's all the audiences that we've built in Analytics 360 and shared over. And you can see I've actually shared some of these now within the Marketing Cloud even to other business units. So that browse ban intents, let's keep that example going. I've actually shared that to a few other business units. I can share it to all if I want as well, or just keep this in my main enterprise business unit that I have set up in the Marketing Cloud. But what does that actually look like in action? So if I go to Journey Builder, I can actually pull up one of these journeys. And I'm actually going to go ahead. I preloaded this because I thought we might be lagging a little bit. So in Journey Builder, I've accessed my browse ban intent journey. And this is using Google Analytics as an entry source. So just to show you, what's going on here, if I click into this entry source, this was created specifically for this integration, and I can see all of those audiences that were imported into the Marketing Cloud right here, and I can select, and I have selected my browse ban intents. And if I want to, at this point, I can actually use any of the additional data that I know about my customers. These are now known customers in the Marketing Cloud. And I can use that data to further filter this audience and who gets entered into this journey. So if I'm happy with that, though, that's really all it is. And I can set my journey up however I want, with emails, mobile messages. I can even advertise back to them on Google if I want. But that's essentially the feature here. I wanted to do one other thing because I know this is kind of the technical side of how it works. But what does that actually look like for a customer? I'm going to go back into kind of my slides here and just show you what that actually looks like played out for a marketer and a customer interaction. So we have Rick. He's our digital marketer at an e-commerce company. Let's call it Northern Trail Outfitters again to keep things consistent. And Kate, who's shopping online. Like it says, she just wants to find what she wants when she wants it. And we want to make it easy for her to do that. So Rick starts by creating this journey like we just saw. Maybe in this case, though, it's a cross-channel journey for a holiday promotion for Northern Trail Outfitters. And Kate is a part of this audience initially, so she engages with an email, but ultimately doesn't make a purchase, as many consumers don't. What happens next is Rick is able to create an Analytics 360 audience of people who haven't converted. That would include Kate. And then make that audience available to the various tools, like we saw, AdWords, Optimize, and Salesforce Marketing Cloud as well. So maybe the first thing that happens then is Kate gets that remarketing ad as she's searching around Google, sees that ad, but doesn't actually engage with it. So that's a touch point that we've not effectively re-engaged her. Because we've shared that to the Marketing Cloud, we can also offer her an email. And in this case, maybe we include that 10% off offer to these people who have not converted like Kate. And that's enough to get her to open and click the email again and get her back into kind of that buying cycle. But when she gets to the website, we're not just providing her some generic kind of experience. We're actually using the power of Google again to marry that experience that she had in the email on the website. So she sees that 10% off offer persisted, and that ultimately gets her excited enough to buy. So she buys her camping gear for herself, or maybe it's for a gift. Now we can add her to a suppression audience so that she won't continue to get emails and advertisements based on the purchase she just made. So a pretty simple example, but one I think that kind of shows what this looks like for both the marketer and the customer. And hopefully that gives you some more idea of the benefit that this feature can have. We're really excited that we're able to do this with Google. Yeah.
Nice. So just a quick clarification. Does GA360 support require an add-on, or is it included in the Marketing Cloud and you just need to have a GA360 account? How does that enablement work?
That's a great question. So this is an add-on to your Marketing Cloud. Right now you have to have one of the Marketing Cloud editions with Journey Builder that is included, and then you add on the integration for Google Analytics 360 to that.
So if you're interested in that, you want to talk to your account executive and they can tell you all about how to. Now, is there a place that you could play with it? Let's say you're not quite sure if it's right for you. Is there, a place where you could experiment with it before purchasing, or?
Yeah, we don't have a trial environment right now, but we do have some great content that's external. There's a trail on Trailhead. There's some recorded videos on YouTube that kind of go a little bit deeper into how it works and some of the use cases. So I would start there to kind of get some idea of, if this is something that would be fit for your business. And then we can always, again, follow up through like the account team or something.
And just to make sure I understand how this works, so when you were talking about audience definition, is an audience essentially defined by the type of behavior that they engage in on the site? So what are they clicking on? What pages are they loading? Kind of what they're doing. So what is being tracked by GA360 becomes kind of your personalization data engine in a way?
Yeah, specifically with this integration, it's being used to build those audience lists of remarketable individuals. And it's data like you said, web app browsing activity. It's also things maybe that Google is maybe not so obvious. So Google might have some predicted kind of segments of people who are highly engaged, and you can actually bring some of that those individuals in as well based on some of the machine learning they might be doing on their side. So it kind of runs the gamut. There is some data that doesn't get touched. There's some like personal identifiable data that only lives within Google. We can't use that to build those audiences to share, but that's something that is kind of more outlined in the documentation and everything.
Great, thanks. So how does it actually match data, like let's say a website visitor with a Marketing Cloud contact?
Yeah, good question. So today, it really starts with an interaction with a Marketing Cloud message, specifically an email. We have, again, one of the things I wasn't able to show was we have a tagging structure and a unique identifier that we apply to all of our messages when you use this integration. And that is how we connect the ID, how we know a customer in Marketing Cloud, to the customer as they're browsing on a website being with Google in the background. And so once that match is made, as customers use Google Analytics 360 to create audiences, those are brought back over, and only the customers who have been matched on that ID pairing are going to be brought back over. And that's in interest of privacy and trust and all the regulations. Like that's number one for us, is making sure we don't kind of delve into any of those waters, but that's kind of how the matching piece works there.
I definitely understand that. And given that, let's say your match rate isn't so great, and you've got a pretty small audience, so you obviously in marketing you want to get as many people as you can, especially with that kind of targeted activity. How could you improve those match rates and make those audiences bigger?
Yeah, so there's the main thing we kind of tell customers using this integration today is get the tags applied to all of the high engagement journeys. Things like welcome series. So when I'm just joining the brand, I'm highly likely to click and open those emails as they're welcoming me in and giving me new offers and things like that. Or your transactional and post-purchase emails where I want to make sure all the details are right, it's being delivered to the right place. Those tags live there, and people drive back to the website and make that match there. And the match is, pretty persistent once it's made, but it has to be through that click. So any of those kind of journeys and emails where there is a high engagement rate already, definitely start there. obviously, we want you to tag all of those emails. And that's not only good for this, but also for your reporting to be able to understand the effectiveness as well. That's another piece of this integration that came out a while in an earlier release. But yeah, that's kind of the step one. And then we're exploring other ways to kind of increase those match rates as well. So more to come on that.
Right. So I can see you'd be integrated, bringing them full circle essentially. So you're sending them to the website, they're coming, they're responding, they're doing something beyond just clicking on the link in the email, right? You now know what they did when after they clicked on the email, and then be even more specific about what to give them next, and then you've got the match, right? Because
exactly.
They went that route.
And if they're going back to doing things on the website, even after they've made that match, so they click through an email, they go to the website, we bring them back in, but then they go to the website without interacting again for a while, that behavior is also being stored and recorded. So as you create new audiences in GA360, you can actually bring those back in and then maybe engage them based off of new web activity they've had. But it is all come back to that first match through the email today.
Nice. So for some folks who are still sort of thinking about using this, can you think of some other use cases or other examples of types of audiences, and then what journey you would send them on?
Totally. So I think the one that we've kind of discussed a little bit is this idea of an abandonment journey, whether it's a cart or a browse abandonment. But we've also got different types of activities like a post-purchase. So if we know somebody has just completed a purchase, that might be a great time to reach out with a survey or some sort of follow-up to that. Another one that is kind of interesting is maybe using, in lieu of having stated preferences for a particular category or type of content, you can use the types of pages they're browsing, whether that's a category of, in this case we were talking about apparel and things like that, or it's a specific type of content to drive a category or affinity campaign and serve them a better experience through that.
Great. Now one more question, and then we'll
Perfect.
move on to the next speaker. So I think you might have alluded to this a little bit, but is Google or Marketing Cloud sharing any demographic or behavioral data between the two systems?
Yeah, so that's where, and again, this is kind of documented more completely in some of our documentation, but any of the demographic or kind of that personally identifiable information generally is not available for sharing. So we want to make sure that is being respected, and there are definitely restrictions on that kind of data that's being shared over. So
thank you for clarifying that. So with that, I think we will shift gears a little bit, and Shrestha will bring you on board here to talk about Einstein engagement frequency.
Thank you, Elna.
Thank you.
So, as I said earlier, Einstein engagement frequency is a tool that lets marketers decide the right number of messages to send to their subscribers to optimize engagement. And the way we see the benefits of this tool are along three categories. The first one, as you'll see in the demo, is that you can see insights about subscribers' messaging sends. So, you can see, as a marketer, you can see how many sends you have and what is the engagement as a function of those send frequencies. We'll get into explaining that in a bit. Based on the analysis of the data, Einstein also makes suggestions about what's the optimal send range. So that's where really the AI and the optimization comes in, and Einstein looks at the send range and makes recommendations. And then finally, based on Einstein's suggestions, we create a couple of data extensions that lets our marketers take action with the insights that Einstein provides them. So with that, let's go into a demo here. So what you see on the screen here is the screen that the marketer sees once they've set up this tool and activated this tool. The first set of filters to look at would be on the right here, which is our data filter section. So there, the first thing to choose would be the days to review, where you can have a selection of either 90 days, 60 days, or 30 days. Because we feel that more data is always better, we default to 90 days, but we have certain customers who do have a more seasonal business, and for those, maybe they want to go with the 30 or the 60-day option. The second filter we have here is for commercial or transactional or all emails. All emails include both commercial and transactional emails. Now, commercial emails, again, is where we think there's the most value for this tool. So commercial emails are where we default to, but we do also provide the option if for whatever reason our marketers want to use this tool for their transactional emails. Transactional emails are more emails like password resets and more of some of the more automated emails. And if marketers want to use this tool for transactional emails, you do have that option as well. But we default to commercial. And then finally, what the marketer gets to choose is the optimization objective. So the idea here is, what do you want to optimize for? Do you want to optimize for increasing your open rate? Do you want to optimize for increasing your click rate? Or do you want to optimize for a blend, which is a combination of your open rate, your click rate, and your unsubscribe rate? And the way this advanced option works is you have a few sliders here. The first set of sliders are related to your open rate and your click rate. So the way you would use the slider is, let's say you take the open rate slider and you slide it to the right. The click rate slider slides to the left. And what we mean by that is it's just the relative weights of importance that you assign to the two sliders. Once you've decided what is the relative weights of your open rate and click rate in your blended metric, you can then choose the unsubscribe penalty slider, which is basically a slider that lets you decide how much do you want to penalize unsubscribes. So if let's say you have two send frequencies, you send a set of subscribers 5 emails, and you send another set of subscribers 10 emails. And the open rate is the same in both of those groups. You might be tempted to think that it's better to go with the group of 10 because the open rate is the same, which means they might be opening more emails. But it's possible that the unsubscribe rate is higher in that group of 10 as well. And so that's where, if you have the option of using this slider to give the tool the calculation and unsubscribe penalty, and when you maximize this slider, basically you're saying penalize the bins that have higher unsubscribes more when you do the calculation and come up with the suggestions. We do recommend when our users start using this tool, we recommend that they go with the mix of open rate or click rate to start with and use the advanced option as they get more familiar with this tool. So let's say you start with the open rate. The first thing you notice here on the left are the Einstein frequency suggestions. So this is where Einstein is suggesting a frequency range. And in this case, Einstein is saying that the ideal frequency range is 55 to 58 emails over a period of 90 days. 90 days, if you remember, is the look back period you chose here. You could also Einstein also provides you with an indication of what Einstein thinks will be the improvement in this case. So Einstein says that the open rate could increase by up to 84%. The next set of information that you can see here is undersaturated subscribers and oversaturated subscribers. So basically what Einstein is saying is, given that the recommendation is 55 to 58, here's the percentage of your subscribers who have less than 55 emails, and here's the percentage of your subscribers who've received more than 58 emails. So that's how we characterize oversaturated and undersaturated, so that you know which are the folks that you've emailed too much, which are your oversaturated subscribers, and which are the folks that you've emailed not a lot, which are your undersaturated subscribers. Finally, we have this chart area here. So what you see here is we start off by giving you a few reporting statistics. So we say this is the number of emails that were sent to this number of subscribers over the last 90 days. Here's the average open rate, here's the click rate, and here's the unsubscribe rate. What we also do is we plot this graph where the x-axis is the number of emails sent and the y-axis is the number of subscribers who've received those emails. Now, it's a little bit hard to read this graph in this form, but the reason we provide this condensed version is for you to see your send distribution. And we also overlay that with the open rate, the click rate, and the unsubscribe rate. But if you want to dig in deeper and understand this graph better, you can click on this expand button here. And what you get is an expanded view of the same chart. And the way to read the histogram would be to say, let's look at this bin here. So this bin says about 18,000 subscribers received 25 emails over the last 90 days. The average open rate for those 18,000 subscribers was 26%, the click rate was 6%, and the unsubscribe rate was 0.01%. So this is how you read the histogram, but we also then overlay the open rate, the click rate, and the unsubscribe rate as a function of the number of emails sent. So this is the expanded view of the graph for you, where you can see the entire range of your email sends. So now that you have the Einstein suggestions, how do you take action from this tool? So for that, you have these two fields right here. So this is the low threshold field and this is the high threshold field. By default, the values in these fields are set to the Einstein frequency suggestions. So you can see that here we have the values as 55 and 58. However, we understand that in a lot of cases, our marketers have more of an understanding of their business than our tool. So we do provide our marketers with the option to tweak these numbers if they want to. So let's say in this case, the marketer changes this range to 55 to 70. A couple of things happen on the screen. As you can see, the Einstein frequency suggestions, they don't change, because those are the Einstein recommendations. We want them to remain the way it is for the data values that you've chosen. However, the calculation of the undersaturated subscribers and the calculation for the oversaturated subscribers is now driven off these two thresholds. And also, the way the undersaturated, on-target, and oversaturated regions are marked on this graph, they're also now driven by these two new threshold values that you have on here. If you wanted to revert back to the Einstein suggestions, all you need to do is click this button here, and now you're back to the Einstein suggestions. But let's say our marketer wants to go with 55 to 70. So these are the two values that will now drive the data extensions. So if you click on Update Data Extensions, you'll see this screen show up. One thing I want to point out is that the first time you use this tool, this button will say Create Data Extensions, because that's the first time you're creating a data extension with this tool. But every other time, this button will say Update Data Extensions. Two data extensions are created. One is a list of oversaturated subscribers, which you'll use for suppression purposes. And the other one is a list of undersaturated subscribers, which you could use for retargeting purposes elsewhere in Marketing Cloud. We also show you a view of your current configuration. This is the value with which the data extension was running before you changed the threshold values. So you see that the data extension that ran perhaps yesterday ran with the values of 55 to 58. And now, since you changed the values to 55 to 70, this shows you what your new values are. So this is just a visual reminder of what the previous settings were and what are the new settings that you're moving to. So that's our tool. After that, you just hit update, and that should update the data extensions for you. So with that, I think we're good to go back into the slides. So I'll give it a second here. So How do we use this tool? So we get a lot of questions from our customers in terms of what's the best way to use this tool once you create the data extensions. And we've identified 3 broad areas along which you could be using this tool. The first use case is suppression. So this is the use case where there's a list of subscribers that you feel have received too much email and you want to not send them any more email. There's a few ways you can do it. The first way would be to, within your email send flow, use this oversaturated subscribers data extension as an exclusion audience during your audience selection step. Similar to that would be using Automation Studio, where you would create a send email activity and then pretty much follow the same steps as you would in your email send flow. Now, as Andy mentioned, we do have Journey Builder in Marketing Cloud, which is our orchestration engine. If you wanted to use Einstein engagement frequency within Journey Builder, what you would do is you'd use a query activity within Automation Studio to create an audience that has already excluded your oversaturated list. And so now you have that audience which has removed the oversaturated folks, and you use that as an entry source in Journey Builder. And then the outcome is pretty obvious here. These are the people who are not going to receive any more emails from you. The next use case is kind of similar, but it involves giving subscribers an option to opt down or opting them down automatically. So in this case, again, you have 3 ways of doing it. In your email send flow, you select your oversaturated subscriber list. Now you select them as your target audience instead of your exclusion audience, as we said in the previous use case. Here you select them as your target audience, and you say that these are the folks with whom we want to take a few actions. I'll come to those in a second. In Automation Studio, it's similar. You create an send email activity, and then you use this oversaturated list as your target audience. And then in Journey Builder, you take the information from this data extension, you add it as a part of an attribute group in Contact Builder, and then you're able to use that as part of exit or decision split criteria within Journey Builder. What would you do with this opt-down option? So there's a few things that we've seen our customers do. The first one is you send them an email and you give the customer the explicit option of updating their preference center. Do they want to downsize the number of emails that they're getting from you? The second one would be you automatically as a marketer decide to move them into a lower cadence of sending emails. So perhaps you were sending them weekly emails and you move to a bi-weekly cadence. And then the final one, which we've seen a few customers use and I find very interesting, is you can decide to switch channels on them. So if you feel they're receiving a lot of emails on your email channel, you can decide to send them more push notifications, perhaps, on your mobile channel. So the 2 sets of use cases we discussed so far are focused on oversaturated subscribers. This next one focuses on people who've not received a lot of email from you. So what can you do with this segment? I think one thing that this one is easier because there's a lot of use cases that come to mind. The first one would be, again, in your email send flow, use this undersaturated subscribers as an audience to do like a retargeting activity. So you use them as part of the audience selection step. Again, in Automation Studio, you can do something similar where you create a send email activity and then you choose your undersaturated audience as an audience selection step. And then again, similarly in Journey Builder, you can select your undersaturated subscribers data extension as part of an audience entry source. And as you can imagine, once you've identified that audience, what you're able to do is you're able to send them special discounts, limited time offers, send them loyalty offers or membership email, or maybe if you have a view of what their preferences could be, you could send them preferential content to get them more engaged with you. So those were a few of the use cases that we have identified where you can use this tool in other parts of Marketing Cloud to drive more engagement with your subscribers.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I was all new to me, so I was absorbing it like a sponge. And I imagine that most marketers without something like this would basically just have to guess, like how many is too many, and clicking unsubscribe is something you want to avoid as much as possible, right? So. Because that has to be respected. Mm-hmm. So I can see why you'd be able to actually use AI to find out from your own email content and the response that you typically get, what is the best number for you as an organization? Because there might be different tolerance levels depending upon the customer. So that's really, really interesting. And I also loved how you could do different tactics. And so you could send fewer emails or more emails. So that's sort of the basic response. But then to bring in these other tactics as well, using this information, that's really interesting. So now, similar with GA360, is Einstein engagement frequency a part of the Marketing Cloud? Is it a new feature in the core Marketing Cloud product, or is that also an add-on?
Yeah, great question. So for our corporate and enterprise editions, this feature is included. So customers who have our corporate and enterprise editions, they can get access to this feature as long as they sign the terms. It is free of cost. For our people who have our professional edition, this is available as an add-on SKU. And I should mention that this feature is already GA, so our customers have access to it if they want to.
And when you were showing the sliders to influence kind of what the recommendation would be, would you consider that a sort of weighting? Like you're kind of weighting like how important is the unsubscribes from the people who opened, and really say, if you put it at 100%, if I understood correctly, would that be saying that if they opened and unsubscribed, we're going to count that as 100%, an indicator of oversaturation, or does that influence? How does that influence the outcome?
Yeah. So again, a great question. So you're right. The idea of those sliders is to provide the relative importance because, when we first were designing this feature, we thought we would only give the option of either optimize for your opens or optimize for your clicks. But we got feedback from our pilot customers, what if I want to optimize for both? And so we came up with this advanced option, and the idea is, at least for the open rate and the click rate sliders, those are what is your relative importance, right? You want to how important is, how many opens is a click worth to you? So that's how you set that. And then the unsubscribe slider is a little bit different, where it's basically telling you what is the amount of the penalty you want to assign to frequencies which may have high open rate or may have high click rate, but also have high unsubscribe rate. And when it's at 100%, we actually have an algorithm at the back end which kind of takes a look at the rest of the data and assigns, decides what that 100% means in the context of the customer's data.
Gotcha. So what about frequency suggestions at the audience or campaign level? What if you wanted to do that?
Yeah, another question that we get a lot. So we decided for the initial launch of this tool to focus on the global level because that's where we have the most data, and AI is only as good as the data you have access to. We do get a fair amount of requests to do this at the campaign or audience level. It's something we're looking into, but that would be feasible for customers who have a lot of campaign level data and have a lot of variation in that data for the algorithm to learn from. So we're looking into it, but right now, we felt we wanted to start at the global level with this feature.
I would imagine you need a certain critical mass of campaign data to be able to make those predictions and see the patterns.
Absolutely. And not just that, you also need variation in the data, right? Because the tool has to learn from the historical variations in the data.
So over time, variations plus volume.
Lots and lots of data, yeah.
Great. Now, can a customer select the range over which they want to optimize? Is that available?
Not today, but we're actively working on, again, Safe Harbor, we're actively working on an update to this tool where the customer will be able to select the range over which they want us to do this optimization. And what really drove that for us is we started seeing that we had a few customers who, quite a few customers who had different modes in their data. So you would have sort of a cluster right at the beginning, but then there'd be other groups. If you remember that histogram I showed you. And we had our customers say that, we don't really want to use this tool for our audience that's not getting a lot of email from us. There's this other set of audience members who are getting a lot of emails from us, which is a different cluster, and we'd like to use this in that range. So that's what drove.
Gotcha. So how does Einstein engagement frequency work with other Einstein? There's a lot of Einstein tools across all the clouds, and including Marketing Cloud. There are other Einstein features. So, like for example, engagement scoring. How do the two work together?
Yeah, that's again another great question. I think right now, we always say using AI is both an art and a science. So right now, what we provide you with is a set of data extensions which identify your oversaturated and your undersaturated audiences, right? You can, in tools like Journey Builder, then look at those oversaturated audiences and do a further split based on Einstein engagement scoring. So let's say, we look at, we take our oversaturated audiences and we do a split. And the way Einstein engagement scoring works is we identify different personas, who are your more engaged audiences, who are your less engaged audiences. And so you look at your oversaturated group of people identified by engagement frequency, and then you apply engagement scoring. And if there is a set of them who are your more engaged people, then you can perhaps send them a few more emails. Whereas if there's a set of people who are your less engaged people, you know that these are the people you absolutely need to suppress or send on an opt-down journey.
Interesting. So it adds information, right, on top of what you get. So that's
Exactly.
great. Now, what about the mobile channel? Is this available for that as well?
Not today. Again, another question that we get a lot. We're looking into it, but right now it's only this tool works for email.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So it's time to move on to the next segment. And Hillary, welcome. Thank you for your patience as we've gone through the content before you.
Yeah.
I believe you're starting with Pinterest integration, and I'm excited to hear about that. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Yeah, thank you all so much for hanging in there with us. I am clearly biased, but I think we have two really cool updates that have been not only asked for a long time, but we've all been looking forward to seeing ourselves. So the first that we're going to talk about is our integration with Pinterest. And I'm showing this to you because I bet there's just a few of you out there who aren't as familiar with the platform. But my guess is if I had a show of hands, a lot of you would also be avid users like myself. And what you see when you open up the platform is this collage, if you will, of all these inspiration, these pieces of content. And what Pinterest really is it's the #1 engagement platform for inspiration, planning, shopping, discovery. You can get recipes on Pinterest for your date night tonight. You can get the latest spring trends in fashion. You can find a new home renovation project and ideas for that. So whatever it is that Pinterest starts to learn about you in Salesforce now, they can help cater the advertisements that you see to things that you'd actually care to see. So this was my newsfeed, and when I looked at it, I got an ad for an outdoors, a woman's winter wicking type jacket. Well, that's because Pinterest and Salesforce know that I am an avid runner, whether it's in the snow or it's in the summer, and I ski frequently as well. So this ad was tailored to me, and this is what's called a promoted pin, or an ad on Pinterest, if you will. So how does this come to be? How do we make these? Well, those promoted pins, this is what we're bringing to you. And so we are incredibly excited to be introducing this integration with Pinterest, where you can take this CRM data stored in Salesforce, be it with Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, Sales Cloud, or Pardot, and you can take that first-party data and you can create really rich targeted audiences that you can then send to Pinterest, and you can connect those with any given campaign pertinent for a given user. Okay, and like I mentioned, this one actually itself was the #1 requested feature update that we had for quite a long time. So that's why we're especially excited to be talking to you today about it. So what does this really look like? We're going to jump in here in a second and look at a demo. But basically, if you're familiar with Advertising Studio, and some of you may be new, it's really just all about building these rich audiences. So when you go into the platform, all you're going to do is create an audience. You're going to give it a title and everything, and just select Pinterest as you would if it was Facebook or Google or LinkedIn or Instagram with Advertising Studio in the past. So you select that, you add your ad account from Pinterest, and then you can go in to Pinterest, and those audiences will be there waiting for you to send out, and then, like we saw, create an ad for that specific user. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to hop in and do a little demo. So within the Marketing Cloud dashboard, if you go over here, you see Advertising Studio, and you go down and click on Advertising Audiences. And when you do that, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the platform, again, you'll see our dashboard showing your match counts, your match rates. You can see all of the audiences listed that you've created in the past and get some information about them. And you can also filter over here by time since created, the different ad networks or audience platforms, if you will, that we have available. But because we want to learn how to create a Pinterest audience, we're going to go all the way up here where it says Create an Audience. And we're going to give this a name. And if you want to, you can give a description. And then this is where we're going to select Pinterest. It's really just as easy as this. And then you can select your ad account and you configure. And the next thing you're prompted to do is choose that list or data extension that you want to pull from. So we'll go into Advertising Studio and we'll click on our high value customers, because that's who we want to reach out to today about this new winter gear. And here, this is pretty much taking care of you. We have the attributes already ready to go. We're using email addresses to match. We have our ad account listed here. And if you so choose, you can choose to set your notification preferences. And like I said, it's really just that easy. And what you would do if we were going live, which I'm not going to create a real audience right this second, you'd click activate. And the last thing you'd be prompted to do is just decide how often you want that refreshed. All right, so back to the slides. That was the first of our exciting Advertising Studio updates. The second I have for you is something very near and dear to my heart, which is Google Customer Match. And before we talk about what's new with Google Customer Match, I really want to give you a background as to what makes Google valuable. And Andy obviously touched on this a little bit, but you're oftentimes, as advertisers, not just advertising on one platform. You're not just on Facebook or Instagram. You're reaching out to your consumer across a variety of platforms and also channels and devices, right? We're constantly on our mobile phones, but also our laptop at work. And so we want to make sure that we're recognizing who somebody is in one place versus the other. And what Google does really well is it's open to you at any point in the day, and people are constantly going to Google, and what they're saying is, hey, here's what I really want. This is what I'm looking for at this moment. This is what I want to purchase. This is what I'm trying to learn about. It's the home of intent-based marketing, and we all use Google all day long. I'm sure, again, if I did the show of hands, you would all agree with me. And we're giving up all of that information. So we already know we're that far along in the purchase path that we as brands should be taking advantage of what we know about a customer and then be tailoring our advertising to them. And with Salesforce and Google together, you can advertise via search, but also shopping and Gmail and YouTube. So what's new with Google advertising and Salesforce? Well, with Google Customer Match in the past, we allowed you to match based on email addresses. But what's really huge and really, really amazing is now that you can not only use email addresses, but you can pull that together with mobile ID and phone number in particular, and much more. And so when you have more match attributes to try and tie to those users, what that means is you oftentimes have much higher match rates and as a result, a much higher return on ad spend, and that's crucial. We actually had a customer who from day one when we released this started using phone number and email together, and they have already seen a 300,000 higher match rate than they did when just email was used. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what this looks like inside the product. It will be very familiar to what we looked at earlier with Pinterest. So again, we're going to go into Advertising Studio and the audiences. And we're going to skip through the dashboard since now we know what that looks like and we're familiar. And we're going to go to create an audience again. This time, a Google customer match audience for fun. And a description. You can select obviously what's ever going to remind you what this particular audience was about. And then we're going to click on Google AdWords this time and connect that Google account. And once we configure that, we're brought to the same list or data extension page where you can manage all of these. And we're going to go back in. And just for consistency, we're going to click on that high value customer segment again. But it will look very different this time than it did with Pinterest. And you see up here where last time with Pinterest we had the option to use email, we now have the option to add more match attributes. So not only can we connect these email addresses as we always have in the past, but we can map out these phone numbers. And if we want to do first name, last name, gender, date of birth, you can see it all here. But when we do that, that's what we're talking about, having more match attributes basically to narrow down our search. And down here, all this data stays the same. Our account has already been chosen, and you can choose notifications if you would like. And once we do that, we're just going to activate once again. And that's about all I have for you, but I would love to take questions if there are any.
Thank you. So the first thing I'm curious about is how are you getting the email address from Pinterest and Google, or the other contact information that you're matching on?
So that's what you have stored in Salesforce. It can be the data that you're getting, and I think this is your question, but that's the data you have here in Salesforce. This is known customer data.
So you know when a known customer is going to Google or Pinterest.
You're sending what information you have about that audience, who you know, and you're sending that so that that's how you can target once you're on Pinterest or Google, and it can look out for these certain types of users. But we also have functionalities where you can use known customer data, like we're using a high value segment in these two examples today. But you can look for people similar to them. On Google, it's called similar audiences, and with Facebook, it's called lookalikes. This feature is not available with Pinterest, but with Google, you can actually look for new prospects or customers that you think will also, there's a very good chance they'll be high value customers of yours based on the characteristics and the behavioral similarities they have.
So you're essentially developing new customers based on what you know about your existing customers?
Yes, with Google, you can do that.
Interesting, okay. And then with Pinterest, do you have to have an ad account set up with Pinterest already if you want to start advertising on Pinterest?
Yeah, great question. So you absolutely do, as you would with any other audience platform that you're pulling into Advertising Studio. But the good news is that's very easy to do. And then once you do that, you can, within a few clicks, connect those accounts to Advertising Studio.
Right. And about how long is the audience activation? How long does it take to process?
So we say with Pinterest it's about 6 to 12 hours, and Google's roughly the same, but those are general guidelines, so we always say safe harbor. But yeah, about 6 to 12.
So what about Journey Builder? Is Pinterest part of the audience creation option there?
Yes, and I should have mentioned that, so I'm glad that was asked. Pinterest alongside LinkedIn and Facebook are, for you of those Journey Builder users, you're familiar that you can create audiences, you can send those out right within Journey Builder. And Pinterest is now one of those that you can create audiences based on your journey and send them right to Pinterest. But I think the match count has to reach about 100 matches first before it's then sent.
Nice. Now, I know this is really exciting for retail, B2C type customers, but are there other use cases you could think of other than B2C, typical retail use case?
Yeah, for sure. So with Pinterest, we do say B2C is most often what we see with our customers, but B2B customers can absolutely find a use case for this. Think of some services that might want to be advertising. And with Google, it's all across the gamut, obviously.
And then you mentioned retention. So can you give an example of what in Google? customer match?
Yeah, so frequently people assume that Google is used for the acquisition of new customers, which it most certainly is. It's great for that. But if, like we talked about a little bit earlier, in Google, you're often advertising on other platforms as well. So if you can be cognizant of what those activities are that someone's having with your brand on another channel or a device, and use that to send the right and the correct ads to them on Google that make note of where they are in their purchase cycle, that's a really powerful ability to have.
Right. And then thinking again more about use cases for Google, what about other industries like financial services? Can you think of a use case for that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. So I guess a good example would be if you're advertising for a new credit card, let's say, or maybe a new type of account that you want people to open up with your bank. Maybe it's college students, and you have their email. You know that they have yet to sign up maybe for an account, or they haven't bought into this credit card. What they can do is, because they know this data based on Salesforce that they have, they can use that to exclude you from those type of campaigns if you've already bought into a credit card or you've already opened an account.
Great. So just the final question, and before we wrap up, if you're interested in using either of these two features and you have Advertising Studio, how do you get them and how do you start using them?
Pinterest specifically and Google Customer Match?
Yes.
If you're an Advertising Studio customer, these are generally available to you already. They are not add-ons. If you're not an Advertising Studio customer, then that's where I would start.
Right. So mainly you're talking about posting ads in Facebook or LinkedIn or different channels, and now Pinterest as well.
Yeah. And one thing I will say that we commonly get asked is it about building ads, or is it really before that? And it's before that. It's a one-to-one audience creation tool that's specifically creating first-party advertising audiences based on the data you have in Salesforce. And like I said, it doesn't have to be Marketing Cloud. It can be Sales Cloud data, it can be Service Cloud, Pardot. So any data that you have, then you can pull those in, and you're really just creating really rich, personalized audiences that then you send out to the ad platforms. So you send those to Pinterest, you send them to Google, and then from there, with your ad account, you can create those campaigns on your own. But all of that data, those match rates, everything comes back into Advertising Studio.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. So it looks like we're going to give you a few minutes back in your day, but that's okay because everybody's always got a full day, and you can always come back and watch the recording if you like. So we thank you for joining us for our first live Marketing Cloud session. And if we didn't get to your question live, don't worry. We will follow up with you in the community or in Twitter in the next couple of days. Please join us again tomorrow morning at 9:30 Pacific for Service Cloud. We'll be diving into some of the new Summer 19 features there. And I also can't wait to hear how you're using new features to innovate. So let's keep the conversation going in the Release Readiness Trailblazer community. And I will also mention that there's a great community for Marketing Cloud as well that you can join and connect with other Marketing Cloud customers like yourself, and lots of experts there, lots of great conversations happening there. So we hope we will see you there as well. And join us in the community where all Trailblazers can meet to be release ready. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.